The college football treatment.
Welcome back to college football treatment. This is the second episode, just after the intro. You would have watched that already. Today we're speaking to NCAA Committee member Isaac Vance, and we thought it was very valuable to get his opinion on, and we'll leave Jamie and Dan to speak a bit about why.
Obviously, we had like a few guests lined up, a few sort of a short list of people that we wanted to message, but I think Isaac stood out to us all because not only is he balancing being a student and being an athlete, but he also balances now being part of the NCAA committee, having his opinion on matters to do with college football. We feel like that was the most valuable to what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like we said, when we were planning the entire production of this podcast, kind of said that we wanted to get on someone like Isaac, who has got the first-hand experience, and like you said, Dan, who's on the committee, so he's got a say in the things that change in the sport and the rules that are implemented. I mean, like you mentioned before, Dan, the rule regarding contact in the scrimmage, like that's the sort of thing that people like Isaac have a say in, because they're the ones that are playing the game. So their voices should be heard because they're the ones that are playing. So they should have a say in what the rules are of the game they're playing.
Well, I think as well, because he joined the NCAA committee around the same time as the NIL was introduced and the contact during scrimmage, he's clearly had a say from the beginning of when he's joined these meetings, which I feel like is important because clearly he's had an influence on the other, 39, 40 people in that meeting already.
Yeah. I think it's like we've said, it's throughout the entire series of this podcast, we want to get people on who have got the first-hand experience, so that it's going to teach us and it's going to teach the viewers as well. Because I mean, we're catering to more towards a UK-based audience, so they're people that might not know about any of this sort of thing. Like, we don't really know too much about it either. So it's like a way for other people to kind of learn about it as well and get the word of someone who is reputable.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, he's going to be very like-minded with us. He's a similar age. I think going away from football, just his mentality about things might be quite similar to ours about things, regardless of knowledge.
Yeah, he seems like an extremely relatable person. He's like you said, he's our age and he's got the same interest. And I think like us, he's got the sport's best interests at heart, which is obviously where his main drive comes from. Because like we said, he's playing the sport and he's got the sport's main interest at heart. So he's going to be trying to get rules implemented that are better for the sport.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think if there's nothing else to add, I think we can lead straight into the interview now. So we'll see you after for
what everyone came for.
The college football treatment.
Welcome, Isaac, obviously NCAA committee member, and congratulations on the new position as president of student athletes at the Mid-American Conference.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So we've got a list of questions Charlie's going to introduce first. So Charlie, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so first question is, how important is it that the players are involved in the committee meetings and they now have a say in all the rule changes in the NCAA?
I mean, it's huge. Being able to have that student-athlete voice involved with the committees is big time. And we currently trying to push for more student-athlete representation on each and every committee, because it's great and all that I'm able to represent our student-athletes, and it's great that I'm able to be there in that room. But at the same time, it's me and 40 other adults, between presidents, athletic directors, and all that. So my voice is heard. I'm able to give my input, but at the same time, it'd be great to have more student-athlete representation so we can bounce ideas off of each other from that 18 to 24-year-old age that we are, and we're truly in the game, still involved in the game each and every day. So being able to roll with that is huge, but currently being able to serve on those committees and being able to represent our student-athletes has been a tremendous blessing.
Good stuff. So it's a bit of a difficult topic, this, so I understand if you can't touch on it much, but Do you agree with the current rules that the NCAA football players aren't paid to play at college level? And what are your thoughts on that? And do you reckon it's possible that'll change at any point?
I mean, we have done so much as of recent with name, image, and likeness to get us to that point of compensation that everybody has desired. So, I mean, I think keeping the game at an amateur level is great for the game. That's the reason there's a scholastic model, being able to go play high school football, go play college, and if you're fortunate enough to go play in the league and make some bread doing that way. But no matter what people say, scholarship athletes, we get paid. Like, it ain't, we still getting our checks each and every month or each and every semester, whatever it may be. So I'm all for keeping the amateur model, but touching on a later question and everything that you talked about, name, image, and likeness is a phenomenal thing for us. If you have the platform and you're able to make that extra bread, go ahead and do that. So that's been a phenomenal thing. And I can't complain about that. But thinking we should be paid on a salary basis, I'm personally not for it, because I think we should keep the amateur model for the purity of what football and what college athletics really is.
Okay, great.
So just touching on that, the name, image and likeness, Isaac, could you kind of explain that just for the viewers and how that benefits you as players?
So name, image, and likeness was a bill that was passed, legislation that was passed from the NCAA in July 1st, 2021. And each and every state has their own specific rules and regulations for that here in the United States. But quite frankly, name, image, and likeness is a chance for us to profit off of our own name, image, and likeness. So that just isn't who we are. But, going back to the old days with the NCAA football game, if that game comes back, obviously that's not us out there, but that's our image. That is who we are. So being able to profit off of that and get paid from that is just what name, image, and likeness is. Being able to be recognized for what you do in the community or what you do, with knowing who being able to just meet up with people and you can help them as much as they help us monetarily, being able to use our voice and use our platform and be on posters and advertisements and tweet this or tweet that, and then being able to compensate us for that because of the platform that we have earned through our play and through just who we are as student athletes is what name, image, and likeness truly is.
So I read about sorry, what was the name of it? Was it the Constitution, the NCAA Constitution? And that talks about the fact that student athletes get benefits, educational benefit, not educational benefits, sorry. How are they different to the NIL scheme, and how do student athletes benefit from that as well?
So for us, the Constitution was truly trying to tear down an old Constitution and modernize it. That's the big thing for us. So we had student athlete voice involved with that Constitution, and we were able to pare that down from 43 pages to 18 pages. And it touched on student athlete mental health and physical health awareness. And that was the number one thing on the Constitution. So us being able to be at the front of that Constitution and let people know that it's a totally different ballgame than it was 30 years ago. We live in a totally different world, and there's more awareness now than there ever has been before. So prioritizing student athlete health and well-being was the big part about that. And, there's still a lot of work to be done. The Constitution was just the initial part of that. But now, there's great committees put in place to transform what the Constitution is now written as, and we can go from there. So there's not so much name, image, and likeness touched on that. Because it's a whole different ballgame for a whole different time. And that's another current issue that we're trying to work through. But the Constitution was a huge step for Division I student athletes and the NCAA as a whole to be able to just modernize that and truly put the student athletes at the front of it.
So you talk about physical health there. Obviously, in the NCAA committee meetings, I've read there's been a lot of things talked about sort of limiting contact in scrimmages and the practices. What's that as a result of? Why has that come about in the last sort of 6 months or so?
I think it's just because we see how long our season's becoming, and we see what the NFL does with their practice model and how often, I guess, or lack thereof, that they truly are in full pads and they hit. The NFL practices, they don't hit each other. Everything is tag off, and you stay up, you stay off the ground. And there's people that have been cut for not being able to stay off the ground. So we're trying to just adapt that, keep our health as best as we possibly can, but also practice the game the right way. There's been plenty of ways to still practice the game the right way. We have a phenomenal camp system from the month of August that we're able to go and do our thing and practice. And there's been limits on the amount of full pads there. And, it's what's best for the student athletes at this point. I'll say that. So it's best for our bodies, but at the same time, we're still able to go out there and practice football the right way and the way it should be done.
Yeah, just you touched on it there, but how important is it that, like, with limiting contact that the players are in peak condition for a game down a Saturday?
It's incredibly important. You know, I can't say we have a great schedule. I think, you know, we're never in full pads during the week during season. You know, we'll go full pads for scrimmages during camp. But you can get all the work that you possibly need, at least as an offensive player. I know it's different on defensive side of the ball. My dad's a defensive coordinator down there in South Carolina, and he disagrees. But as an offensive player, we can get every single thing that we need to get done, and helmet, shoulder pads, and shorts. You know, we don't ever need to go to the ground to get better or to work on our craft. So as an offensive player, I think it's great. Obviously, a defensive player, there's a little more technicalities to it because they do have to tackle and make plays in the open field. That's a little harder to do when you're tagging off on somebody. But as an offensive player, it's great. And like it does keep us fresh. And, you know, we start a season in early September. So ending our season in some teams in January with a January bowl game, that's a long way to go if you truly bang in each and every day of practice. So taking care of how you practice is a result of how you perform on Saturdays through the game.
Guys, thank you, Isaac. That's fantastic.
The college football treatment.
So some interesting words from Isaac Vance there. I mean, the thing that I picked up on most was the NIL discussion that we had. And in terms of the fact that obviously it gives the players, student athletes, a way to market themselves away from football. So it kind of sets them up for a different perspective if football doesn't work out for whatever reason. It gives them those sorts of experiences to kind of be successful in other parts of life, which I think was really interesting.
And I think, like, even for those that do make a career out of football, I think learning how to brand yourself and learning how to pick up different skills yourself, where footballers probably haven't been able to do that in the past because they've been so focused on the football, they let other people deal with that. And maybe that has been problematic for them in their professional career.
I think as well, the fact that the game has sort of progressed so much as well, not just American football, but every sport, like the PR side of it and the actual media and how the players market themselves, it's so much more important now in terms of not just like the money they receive from it, because obviously there is a lot of money involved, but just how big social media has become, and like they need to not only be players for a college, they also need to be like in their own right sort of a brand, so they can market themselves and earn money from the NIL scheme, just the same way that sort of train in order to be a good American football player to make a living that way. It's just as important, and in sort of like learning how to market yourself now as it is to actually be a player, sort of caught up with it really quickly.
You see it a lot nowadays as well. Like a lot of people support individuals instead of just like a team.
Exactly.
So like it's beneficial in that aspect as well, because there's a lot of people that do just support individual sports players or sports stars. I mean, we're talking on a bigger scale. So like, for instance, someone might support Patrick Mahomes as just an individual, so would follow him as an individual instead of the Kansas City Chiefs as a team. But that obviously it starts somewhere, and for the NIL, that's kind of how it's beneficial in that way, because it's giving the players a way to like you said, Charlie, brand themselves and to kind of build their own individual following to try and make some sort of living out of it. If like I said, football doesn't play out.
I mean, you raised a good point with Mahomes there. I was going to say, like you say, on a larger scale, but you look at OBJ. He's now a brand. OBJ is a brand because of how he talks about himself, because of the sort of swagger he has about him. People will just support his career now. So like someone like
Odell Beckham Jr. will end up bringing out his own trainer like brand or something, like Michael Jordan did, and something like that will happen where he'll earn millions and millions off that when he's finished with football. And that's what I suppose the NIL does. It gives them a way to kind of, I mean, it would be interesting to know the ins and outs of, is it just purely based on what they do, or do they get given guidance from the colleges? But I suppose we can find that out from a different guest at some further point down the line.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're going to have a player on at some point, which obviously Isaac Vance is a player as well, but we're going to dedicate an episode purely on the playing side. We could still speak to someone about that, because it is interesting. Do the college kind of, I mean, obviously they're given guidance, but do they kind of give them, I don't know.
Is it the right? I know what you mean. Is it the right guidance?
How they do? Yeah.
But like, from a personal point of view, like obviously I was the last one out of us three to get into the sport. And even before I got into American football, obviously Tom Brady is a name everyone knows. Same way Odell Beckham Jr. is a name everyone knows. But that's purely because of the branding, the social media, how much they get pushed to audiences that aren't just American football and in our case college football based, which sort of sets them up. I mean, obviously going back to the whole point of the podcast is to sort of like scrutinize and analyze our question about whether college students are treated fairly or justly in regards to what they receive from, like what the colleges receive from the game. And if they can't pay them a salary, I feel like the next best thing is sort of giving them the opportunity to earn through NIL and teaching them how to sort of, like we said many times, like market themselves and like become a brand, so they can make money. Like, because obviously it's such a massive sport, even in America, like people just support college teams. So the fact that they've been given the opportunity by the colleges to market themselves and brand themselves, it does show that they are being given opportunities to earn from it from a monetary side.
Straight off the bat, just even from speaking to Isaac, I mean, I've already kind of formed the opinion that I think the colleges are kind of doing it right the way they're doing it at the minute.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, it's giving them more to work towards rather than just giving them a paycheck. I mean, obviously, like Isaac said, they do pick up a paycheck every month, like you said, but that's scholarships, which obviously that has to go towards rent and things like that. They'll have some left over that would just be like a little bit of pay, but only 62% of college students in the NCAA are on scholarships. So it's the majority still, but it's not everyone that's getting that paycheck every month. So it's kind of
just the best.
The NIL gives them all an opportunity, not just the scholarship students.
And I think it's interesting to see how, because obviously this first couple of months that the NIL's actually been introduced, I think in the long term it'll be interesting to see how well branded and how well produced college footballers are in terms of the PR side, because obviously you've probably only got a small sample size of players at the moment that have actually been picked up by brands and used their name, image, likeness like effectively. I think in the next few years we'll start to see, like Bryce Young. I feel like for Bryce Young, who's already got about 300k on Instagram, he's already a big name in college sports.
For someone like him though, he's on the scale where, I mean, obviously it would benefit him being paid at this stage, but he knows at some point he's going to be in the NFL. So he's probably not worrying about pay at the moment. I think for the lower kind of tier players that are in Division 1 that kind of, they know they might get to the NFL, but it's not like it can't just be a be all and end all. Yeah. It gives them the kind of the know-how on how to make money other than football, which I think is massively beneficial instead of like just giving them a paycheck.
Yeah.
I think, before we move on, because we've spoken about this for quite a while now, but it's the same way sort of in UK schools, we don't get taught anything in terms of like how to like get a mortgage or pay tax or anything like that. But this NIL scheme has given college footballers or students to like the opportunity to learn how to sort of progress their like careers and their like ability to earn money through the college sort of thing, if that makes sense. Like they're actually teaching them ways to sort of better themselves, not better their careers, and then effectively give them more of a chance to get into the NFL. Because I know some players might not be the best, but if they've got good social media backing and they're a massive name,
that's
just
true.
in their own right, the NFL might pick them up because that will then make the team money.
That's true. Yeah.
Like we touched on earlier,
I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
But we touched on earlier, teams, or not teams, people sometimes support individual players. So if someone's been following a college footballer and all of a sudden they get snapped up by the NFL, like an NFL team, then they're going to go, oh, do you know what? I'll have a soft spot for them and eventually buy into the whichever franchise.
The college jerseys with that player's name on the back of it.
Exactly.
And that obviously feeds into the money side of it. So I didn't think of it that way.
I think if you're a scout as well, obviously, out of the three, none of us know about sort of NFL scouting in that in depth. But do you subconsciously pick a player because they've got an influence on you in that sort of way? if they're an influential
Yeah.
character, are they in the back of your mind all the time? And I feel
That's
like
that's another good point though, because it's got to be influential in a good way. It can't be like someone
yeah, of
who's
course.
just loud and leery and are just like out there, because that could be bad for a dressing room. Like, it's got to be the correct way. But that's what I mean. That's where the colleges are going to be given the guidance on that, on how the right way is to market themselves and
Yeah.
kind of get their name out there positively, instead of just being an entertainer for the wrong reasons as such.
Yeah. I think we'll pick up quickly on contacting scrimmages, because I thought he mentioned quite a sort of a new relevant point, that the fact that that's only just been picked up by colleges after years of it being in the pro game, and how important it is for them to stay sort of 100% for a Saturday game. I think the fact that it's taken this long is ridiculous, but the fact that it's coming in now shows how much power the students have in the committee meetings.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like one thing you mentioned as well in regards to that is that there needs to be more student athletes on the committee, so that there's more of a voice, instead of just like like you said, they're in the meetings, but they're kind of still outnumbered in those meetings. Yeah, it's still great that they're in them because they can have some sort of influence, but there needs to be more of them in the meetings to kind of get the message out even further.
Yeah, he made a comment. It was I should remember this, but it was something like he referred to the other people in the meeting as adults, which sort of connotes the fact that students in the meetings that might be sort of brushed aside a little bit, and they might not feel the students' input is valid in regard, like in comparison to someone else on the board who's like a coach or a teacher or someone else of like a different title. But it should be the other way around. It should be the student athletes having most of the say, because they're the ones that effectively put their bodies on the line for the colleges every time they play. I know we touched on the fact that obviously contact scrimmages has been addressed now, but it's still a very physically demanding sport, and the fact that, like Isaac touched on, the fact that it is adults versus, well, not versus, but it's adults and a few students, sort of connotes the fact that they're not seen as that valid in the meetings, and it really should be the other way around, because like I said, they are the ones that are putting their like bodies out there for, obviously for their own good, because they enjoy it and they want to make a living out of it potentially, but also the fact that the colleges make a lot of money from it.
Yeah, effectively, these meetings should all have the same outcome, and they should all be on the same page in terms of it should all be about how getting the best out of the college players as students, not just players. So it should all the outcome of these meetings should all be the same. They should be the same every time. There's no reason why obviously each meeting will have a different topic that they're going to be discussing, but it should all stem back to the fact that college players should be treated more like humans, really, and not just football players,
not just entertainers.
Yeah,
like they are, first and foremost, they are students. Like they are all juggling a degree with this physically demanding sport that they do. Like you said, it just should be more. Obviously, we're not in the meetings, so we can't really like speak on the tone of the meetings and stuff. But the fact that Isaac said they sort of feel outnumbered by adults like teachers and stuff like that, it shows that they're not quite there in terms of having much of a say. Obviously, the NIL thing and contact and scrimmages would be because students have sort of brought that up, and the fact it's taken so long to introduce those things shows that they're still maybe not getting the opportunity, a fair opportunity in the meetings.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that wraps up this episode. It was a great episode to start off with. Obviously, having Isaac on. Next episode, we're going to have a college analyst on, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next week.